In today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to be talking about website redesign process most business owners skip. As a business owner, sometimes you just feel your website looks dated, it hasn't been refreshed in a year or two, and you just want to modernize your website. You want to make it have new features and functionality. If that's the reason why you're designing your website, you've made the first mistake. The second mistake where people make is when you're doing a rebrand. Maybe you're changing the color, the logo, and the feel of your brand as a whole. And then you decide, whilst we're rebranding, why don't we just redesign the website? And then you're trying to redesign your website based on your brand positioning and everything that has to do with your brand, which is good and bad. But I want you to understand that the primary goal for redesign your website, whatever reason you're having, should be linked to commercial outcomes. Your redesign should focus on we're making X number of sales and we want to increase that sale by this amount to this amount, 10, 15, 20% increase in sales and revenue. And then you tailor your website redesign to help you achieve that goal. That is the most important reason why you should redesign your website. So as a business owner, you have two options when you're redesigning your website. Think of a website redesign like a building project. If you have a property that on the land, there's already a building there. If you're looking to redesign that building, what you can do is you can either demolish the building and start from afresh, or you can modernize that existing building. That same principle applies to your website. You have the option of redesigning, a radical redesign from ground up to redesign the whole website, or you can tweak and optimize the website. Whatever option you choose is dependent on your budget. It's also dependent on the skills that you have within your organization. But before you make that decision, and if you're going to make that decision to redesign your website, I want you to follow this step to make sure that you've covered everything that you need to cover. So the redesign process covers analytics audits. Before you start a redesign, you need to audit your existing website. Just like before you modernize a building, you need to look at the structure, look at the interior, and do an estimate of what you need to repair. The same principle applies to your website. If you're redesigning from afresh or you're optimizing and tweaking an existing website, you need to follow these steps. The first thing you want to do is look at your analytics. Look at the current analytics setup. Look at the information that you can gather, your conversion information, the number of visitors you're getting, the number of repeat visitors you're getting, the journeys on your website, the friction points. And when you're doing an analytics audit, you have two types of analytics. You have the qualitative and the quantitative analytics. The qualitative analytics is your heat map, your session replays. You want to understand how people are behaving on the websites, what they're clicking, what they're not clicking. You want to understand the major issues on the website. And then the quantitative analytics will tell you the what, the journeys, where people come in, where people exit from your website. Those two information is vital for your new website redesign. Start with an analytics audit. The next thing you want to do is a conversion rate optimization audit. In some instances, conversion rate optimization is A/B testing, testing variation of your website. You create a version A and version B and you test it and then you update the website. Sometimes your website doesn't necessarily need CRO. It needs a full redesign because you're just patching the wound. You're trying to use sellotape to patch a leaking bucket when it comes to conversion sometimes. So in some instances, you actually need a full redesign. And for you to know what is not working on your website, for you to design a new website, you need to do a conversion rate optimization audit. Another audit that you need to do is a search engine optimization audit. We all know about the advent of AI and the way AI is crawling websites and gathering information. Probably your website wasn't designed with AI in mind, and you need to redesign your website. For you to know what the new website needs to look like, you need to do a search engine optimization audit to make sure that your website will be good for the new design. All these audits that I'm mentioning is to gather recommendations that would then go into the new design of your website. Do not redesign your website without doing a complete audit that I've talked about here. Then if you are doing Google Ads and you're sending traffic to your website through Google Ads, you also want to look at all the landing pages that you have been using. If you're using your generic SEO landing pages, that's a problem. But if you have dedicated landing pages, you also want to audit those landing pages to make sure that you're getting the right recommendations for the new design. The most important part of your redesign project should be your navigation. I was part of a team that redesigned the website, and the bulk of the redesign that we did was something called tree testing. It was to test the navigation, because what people don't understand with a website is the navigation determines the conversion of your website. How you structure your navigation can either make or break your conversion. You can increase your conversion by as high as 50% or reduce your conversion if you redesign your website without touching the navigation. So what this means is you need to, again, look at the funnel on your website. A lot of people look at conversion on a page level. Conversion is not on a page level. Conversion is a funnel. So what I want you to do before you redesign your website, again, is to look at the navigation and define the funnels within your website. What is the funnel for the first time visitor that comes to your website? What do you want them to journey through? What is the funnel for people that are your first time customers? What do the funnel look like? What is the funnel for a repeat purchase? What is the funnel for someone that comes to your website just for updates? Or what is the funnel for someone that is always price sensitive and looking for a discount? When you think about all these funnels, then you start mapping out what content, what pages you want them to navigate through to get to that final conversion. This is very, very important. So when you've done all this audit that I mentioned, the analytics audit, the SEO audit, the CRO audits, the content audits, the navigation audit, all these audits will then lead you to start creating a wireframe. As a business owner, you might be thinking to yourself, what is a wireframe? A wireframe is just a basic design of what the website would look like before the design starts. So what I want you to do again is to take a sheet of paper, draw what you think the journey should be. When someone lands on the homepage, what service do you want them, or what product do you want them to see first? How do you want them to journey through your website? Again, it's like building a house. Before you build a house, you have your architect will present you with the design of the house. That is exactly the same thing a wireframe is for a website. You want a visual representation of the website before it's designed. The way an architect will give you the design of your house before they start building, and then you make changes. They communicate to you what everything would look like, what the kitchen would look like, what the living room would look like, what the garden, the driveway. That is the same thing you need as a business owner. So if you're a small business owner and you've designed a website and you've never seen a wireframe, you're missing a major important element of the design process. So that wireframe is what you would then use to test the validity of the website before it goes live. So as a business owner, once you get the wireframe, ask your agency or your developer to create a prototype of the website. And you want to make sure that prototype is tested by actual customers or people that are very close to your customer persona. Once that is tested, then the website can then be designed and developed, and then it goes live. Once the website goes live, you also want to make sure that you're doing a post-launch analysis of the website to see what's working, what is not working. For a website redesign to be successful, you really need to first audit the existing website, gather recommendations and insights, and use those insights to create the new website. I've seen organizations that have gone through a redesign process that have literally ignored all the conversion rate optimization documentation that they've had in the past, and they just redesigned the website. If you have not been doing conversion rate optimization before, then you need to do all this audit that I've mentioned earlier on in the podcast before you redesign your website. If your website is not making as much sales, if your website is not generating as much leads, sometimes it's not the marketing that is broken, it's the website. Because if you're spending thousands and thousands on Google ads and you're not getting the results, if you're spending thousands on offline advertising and you're not getting the results, and your cost is constantly increasing, it's time for you to just take a step back and look at your website. Maybe your website needs upgrade. My name is Femi Olajiga. If you need help with redesigning your website as a small business, reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you. You can book an appointment by clicking on the link in the show notes, and you can book a free 30 minutes consultation with me where I can go through your website and understand what you're trying to achieve. Again, a website redesign is very, very important for the commercial growth of your business. You can easily increase your growth and your revenue by 50% upward by redesigning your website the best way you can. Again, my name is Femi Olajiga. Like, share, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're listening on podcast platforms, give us a 5-star review. Thank you. God bless. Bye.